Welcome to FEMA's Public Assistance Program webinars presented by FEMA's Training and Development Branch.
USDA Rural Development Water and Environmental Programs for non-federal cost share. Misty Sinsagali, I am a community program specialist with USDA Rural Development Water and Environmental Programs in our national office. I have been with our national office since July. I have been with rural development for 10 years now. Prior to joining the national office staff, I was located in the Vermont, New Hampshire jurisdiction. I reside in Vermont, and I am been with the federal government for about 18 years total now. I love rural development. I love what we do, and I love all of the programs that we have. But I especially love what we can do with our water and environmental programs. So when I was hired onto national office, I was hired in as the Division N, or the disaster lead. So we have something called calendar year 2022 Division N, or Disaster Water Assistance Grant Program, that I am in charge of nationally. And so that, along with providing assistance to some specific states in our country, I am happy to work with our wonderful national office staff and do the great things we do for our water and environmental programs. So as we all know, unfortunately, severe weather events can have a devastating impact on communities. Each year, as we see, communities throughout the country are impacted more and more by severe weather, and they're typically a result of different natural catastrophes. And in some cases, these severe weather incidents will require federal assistance. Depending on the type of incident, the president may make a declaration of an emergency or major disaster incident, or they may not. But once a presidential declaration has been made, FEMA can aid state, local, territorial, or tribal governments so communities can respond and recover from the major disasters or emergency incidents. Disaster declaration is not a requirement for any of our water and environmental program, regular loan and grant programs. However, many times rural communities that have been impacted by a disaster are in search of additional funding programs to fund recovery projects. In some cases, our water and environmental programs funding can be leveraged with FEMA funds to fund disaster recovery projects in eligible rural areas. FEMA Public Assistance and FEMA Hazard Mitigation Assistance programs require a non-federal cost share match contribution for their projects. Today, I'm going to talk to you about our water and environmental programs. I'm going to give you some numbers, explain a little bit of what we do and the impact we have across the country. And then I'm also going to talk about how our programs, water environmental programs, can be used as that non-federal cost share match contribution, or in some cases as standalone resources for your community or communities. So just to give you some information on our water and environmental programs and the impact that we have, water and environmental programs, or WEP, invested $1.62 billion in rural communities in fiscal year 2024, which is October 1st of 2023 to September 30th of 2024. We impacted 1.65 million rural residences. 86% of those recipients were public bodies, 13% were nonprofit organizations, and 1% were Native American tribes and organizations. So water environmental programs can finance almost anything involved with drinking water, wastewater, stormwater, or solid waste. They are administered uniquely in 47 state offices and hundreds of field offices throughout rural America. One of the things that I love about rural development and have from my starting point 10 years ago is that in any state you go to, most any state and territory in the United States, you will find a rural development office. You will find boots on the ground. You will find local folks there to assist you in any manner they can. I think in many ways it sets us apart from many other agencies, and we are there to assist not only with our programs, but if need be, help folks find other programs that can help fund their projects as well. So a few more statistics or data points for you all, just to see what we have kind of for let's say, our return on investment. We have, for new connections that we helped fund this past year, we funded over 5,000. We funded over 2,000 miles of line, water line, sewer line for these small communities, rural communities. The percentage of projects that alleviated health or sanitary issues was about 76% of all of our projects across the country. And the total leveraging of funding from other funding partners was more than $500 million. So it just goes to show, especially in this day and age, that we cannot do it alone, that no project usually can be funded through one source of funding. So we are proud and happy to leverage our funds with other funds that are out there. This is just a map to kind of highlight quickly where our WEP awardees are. This shows from 2015 to 2024, all of the communities, rural communities that we've helped. Here's just some more information on the counties that we've assisted in all 50 states and 6 territories. The population served, the median household income of those populations that we've served. Just some quick data points, just so that, again, you see the impact that our funds have out there and how we leverage the other funds that are available to folks in rural communities. So again, today we're going to talk about some of our water and environmental programs and how they can be used to fund projects that are funded through public assistance or hazard mitigation assistance programs. This is something that our funds have always been able to do. Only recently have we really worked with FEMA to make sure that folks that have projects understand that our funds can be that match. So even though it has been something that we've been able to do, it's really been something that the team that I work with and certain folks that are my team in national office did an amazing job kind of making sure that we have it in writing, that everyone knows that we have the ability to do this, and have created that framework or groundwork for us to move these projects forward and fund these projects together. So this gives you an idea of under, FEMA's PA and public assistance and hazard mitigation programs. FEMA can provide assistance to eligible applicants for repair and restoration of disaster damaged water, waste disposal, and wastewater facilities, and for the mitigation of these facilities. The USDA can also provide its eligible applicants with water and environmental program grant and or loan funding to repair and restore these facilities. So FEMA's projects are subject to a cost share, which the applicant is responsible for. The non-federal portion or cost share is typically 25%. It can be less depending on the disaster and the declaration made, but it's typically 25%. So that 25% can be funded through our water and environmental programs. It can be a combination, which I've seen, of other state funds as well as our funds that come in and make a project whole and allow the applicant to not have to contribute a lot of money in a time when they are trying to recover and get back on their feet. So the first program that I'm going to talk about is our water and waste disposal direct program. So eligible applicants for this program: public bodies, not-for-profits, Indian tribes of federal and state reservations, and other federally recognized tribes. Eligible areas. So something to keep in mind, our eligible areas are city, town, or unincorporated area of 10,000 or less based on the last decennial census. So this information, again, I'm sharing with you as part of the presentation. Depending on where you live in the country, please reach out. If you haven't connected with your local rural development office, I will gladly connect you with those folks who can go more into, helping answer those questions. Is my area eligible? What else do I have to do to understand my eligibility? Like I said, I'm presenting kind of the basics of the program, but we here at Rural Development are more than willing and able to answer any further questions that you have, including the local staff in your local RD office. So again, no matter where the facility is located, loan and grant funds will only be used to finance the portion serving the rural areas. So that's an important reminder for the population and where we can serve. So funding also covers activities including soft costs that are related to the construction or improvements, which can include the engineering, environmental, legal fees, and some of those other items listed on here. It is important to remember with any federal funding, especially ours, you're going to be required to do an environmental report. You're going to have a portion, you're going to have engineering done for the project. So those are all project costs that can be incorporated into your application for the funding. I'm also going to talk about a couple of other programs at the end of this presentation that are specifically for planning. If you are unable to locate those planning dollars or don't have them available right away, there are some programs that we have available that could help and assist with paying for those. So again, loan funds can also be used for interest incurred during construction, startup operations and maintenance, purchase of facilities to improve service or prevent loss of service, refinancing of non-agency debt in some situations. So all very important things, great things to know about what our dollars can do. One of the biggest questions that I always get, or we always get, is how much can we get in grant funds? So what is available for grant funds? In my years with rural development, really look at our loan and grant program as, it is primarily a loan program. It is a loan program until you prove the need for grants. And even then, if we look at what our interest rates are for our program, which are on this slide, you can see that they're low. Our market rate being 3.875, our intermediate being 3.125%, and our poverty rate being 2.375%. These interest rates change quarterly. They can go up, they can go down, they can stay the same. But it's important to remember that if you approach USDA Rural Development, Water and Environmental Programs, and you were to get a loan with us, it can be up to 40 years or maximum of what your state law says. It is a fixed interest rate. So depending on what that interest rate is at the time that we obligate our funds, you'll never go any higher than that interest rate. You could go lower depending on what the interest rate is when you close on your loan. It's something that when you think about planning and understanding what your outlook is for the future, knowing that you have a fixed interest rate for a specific term really does help with planning purposes, especially if you are recovering from a disaster. So again, there's no fees or any other charges. Your grant, is used to maintain a reasonable user rate compared to similar systems. So when we think about our grant funding, it's important to note that we go through underwriting. We understand where you are, where your rates are, and if in fact, depending on your project costs, it is shown that you need grant dollars in order to keep those rates affordable, that's when grant dollars will come into play. But it's not something that is guaranteed right out the gate. So it's just important to remember that, depending on the information you look at, you may show that your community, based on your median household income, might be grant eligible, but until we go through our underwriting and our understanding of where you are with your user rates, that's that time that we determine that. But as you can see, these are our loan rates and our maximum term. So I'm going to move on to another program that could possibly be open to anyone that is looking for another source of funding. This is our water and waste guarantee program. So the water and waste disposal loan and grant program is one where you could look at rural development as the lender. We are issuing a loan to our borrower, the applicant. This guarantee program helps private lenders provide affordable financing to qualified borrowers to improve access to clean, reliable water and waste disposal systems. So this is really where you would work with your local lender to secure a loan. We would act as the guarantee to that loan. What's different about this program is that your population can be upwards of 50,000 residents or less, so that 10,000 population does not apply. In 2024, or for fiscal year 2024, our loan guarantee was at 80%. And again, your lender, you will work with your local lender to establish, what that loan term would be, as well as that interest rate would be. Moving on to, again, like I said, we're going to talk about multiple programs today. This is our Emergency Community Water Assistance Grant Program. So when I'm having conversations about what programs, especially, let's say in the wake of a disaster, what programs can be used to possibly fund a needed project. The Emergency Community Water Assistance Grant Program is one that I speak about often, and is one that you do not have to have a federally declared disaster in order to access these funds. So again, rural areas and towns with populations of 10,000 or less, local public bodies, nonprofit organizations, and federally recognized tribes. Again, very similar eligibility requirements. You must be assisting a rural area that has a median household income of less than, I always say, this state's rural average household. And again, we have all of this information, so don't feel as though you've got to hunt for it. We can point you to all of this information if you are interested in this program for your community. And again, the emergency event doesn't have to be a federal declaration, but it does have to be a permanent solution to meet the objective of the program. And you do have to show the demonstration of financial need, as in the rest of our programs. There are 2 different grant limits that you can look at. So if it is for a water source, wells, treatment plant, line extensions, water tank, you can ask or receive up to $1 million for a project. For any repairs or replacement, distribution lines, motors, pumps, as evidence there's actually a list of them, and other equipment damage, it's up to $150,000. So depending on the project or projects, and depending on what it is for, here are the 2 different amounts that you could possibly be looking to USDA Rural Development to assist you with through the Emergency Community Water Assistance Grant, or ECWAG, as we like to call it. So again, when thinking about the emergency incident, again, it doesn't have to be a federally declared disaster. It may be drought, earthquake, flood, tornado, hurricane. As you can see, we've given the definition on the slide of what it can be, not limited to that, though. It can be awarded in the event of an emergency for obtaining or maintaining adequate quantities of safe water. So, it's really in those events. I've seen a lot of them lately, unfortunately, whether it be flooding or a result of a tornado. There's a number of different things that can impact your, safe water or safe drinking water. If you look at this as the definition that you will have to meet when you look at our application for the program, and it is something where if you're in recovery, or you've had a disaster, you most likely will be able to meet it depending on what it is. If you feel as though that your quantities of safe drinking water, or there's a decline is imminent of your water, just call us, ask us. I always say the worst we're going to say is no, but we can't have a conversation about it if you don't give us a call or ask us these questions up front. Again, here's some eligible uses of grants. I'm not going to go through all of them. They're there, but they can do a number of different things. One of the things that I think is important also with the ECWAG program to keep in mind is that it can pay for costs that were incurred within 6 months of the date of an application was filed. So if there's an emergency situation that has happened and you are paying fees or you're paying for, say, water to be brought into a site, potable water, and we can help that program, the ECWAG program, can go back 6 months from the date of that application and help pay for those fees that were incurred. It's a great thing. I've seen it done many, many times, and it's important to keep in mind when we think about what some of these costs can be as you're recovering from a disaster. I included a slide on our application. I'm not going to dive in. I could spend an entire session on how to apply for our funds, which I can certainly do at another time if anybody would like me to. But I just wanted to let folks know that our regular water and waste disposal loan and grant program has our standard application, what I would call our standard. You're going to have to apply through what is called RD Apply, which I find to be much more useful and helpful than our old paper application. You'll do the same for the ECWAG program, or our Emergency Community Water Assistance Grant program. All of our applications at this time go through RD Apply, which for ECWAG is a simplified. It just does not ask for all of the same things as our standard application. This walks you through what will be required. As I said, environmental report, some sort of engineering report, whether it be simplified for the Emergency Community Water Assistance Grant or a full preliminary engineering report will be required as part of our application. And in all reality, you're going to need some sort of engineering for any type of project that you have, whether it be a standalone project for USDA rural development funds, or for a project that is funded with both our funds and FEMA funds and other funds like housing and urban development, community development block grant funds, which can also be used as that non-federal cost share match to FEMA funds. There will need to be engineering done and there will need to be environmental done. So when we think about, when you're in the throes of thinking about a project, reach out, have the conversation about what level of engineering, what level of environmental, coordinate with all of those folks that you have available to you to make sure that everybody's on the same page about what is required for each funding source so that you don't get too far down the road and find out that more is required. Communication is key, early and often, as I say. I'm going to touch quickly on our calendar year 2022 disaster water grants. This is a program primarily for any disasters that have occurred in calendar year 2022. It is a program, though, that has recently been used to fund. I've approved a couple of projects in a state that used our disaster funds as the applicant's match to FEMA funds in a project. Those projects also had state funds that were used, but it was the first time that we've seen our funds be used as that non-federal cost share match to a FEMA project or to FEMA funds. And so it gives us, an idea of here's the type of project. Here's what the application can look like. Here's what the engineering can look like. I have no doubt that it will be the first, we'll have many after it. But our calendar year 2022 disaster program, that was, I will give credit to the amazing team that I work with because they built it up. Prior to me coming on to national office, I was just kind of given the keys to fly the plane that was already built, thankfully. So the calendar year 22 disaster program is one that I think you will see as the foundation or the blueprint for future disaster programs if we have them. So this calendar year 22 disaster program has the ability to help rural areas with a population of up to 35,000. Something that's different than our regular programs is that the eligible applicant, the prefabricated homes communities, can be a not-for-profit or a for-profit entity. The eligible project costs, it can not only replace in-kind, but it can also fund resiliency projects, which is something our funds can do. There is no there's no maximum award or no minimum, no maximum in terms of award amount that we can possibly give. The funding that was available was $247 million I will say we have a pretty healthy pipeline for our country right now that is going to spend most likely all of that within the next 6 months. We've had the money out since last August. Our great partners in rural water and RCAP and the states that had calendar year 22 disasters have done an amazing job getting the monies out to these communities that need it. And I included in this presentation in case there are any projects out there, but really to also make you aware of what is currently being done for a disaster program and could possibly be looked at as the blueprint for any others in case you're wondering what a potential future program could look like. I did want to include the Special Evaluation and Assistance for Communities and Households grant, we call SEARCH grant, for water and environmental programs, because I did say we were going to talk a little bit about some planning grants. This is one of them. Again, this is for populations of 2,500 or less, and it really is for pre-development feasibility studies, design, technical assistance. If you know that you possibly are going to need that planning, you're looking for planning funds, you say, it appears I'm an eligible applicant based on the population and what my median household income is for the population that I serve. This could be a possible grant for you. They can be up to $30,000 with no matching requirement. It could be part of that funding for planning. It could fund the entire planning package, but it is a great source of funding as you're thinking about what you need to do next with your project. And you know you have to get that planning done, whether it be that preliminary engineering work or the environmental work. This could possibly be a source of funding for that. There is another grant that we have called the Pre-Development Planning Grant. This is kind of that sister program to the SEARCH program, but is for populations of anywhere between 2,500 and 10,000. So with a certain median household income. And again, this grant can be up to 60,000. There is a 25% match that is required as part of this planning grant. So that is something to keep in mind where that match comes from. It could be applicant funds or others. But again, it is another source of planning dollars that I encourage folks. Planning is key. You're going to have to plan no matter where you are in the process. Planning is going to have to be done. So working with rural development, working with FEMA, HUD, other sources to make sure that you start that planning as soon as possible is key, because the sooner that you can get that project planned, the sooner you can move it forward, especially in an emergency situation. You know that something's going to have to be done. And again, we are all here to help. We're all here to work together to make sure that you receive not only the funds that hopefully you need, but also the assistance in navigating the different funding sources and what needs to be done for them. Again, like I said, this is the most important slide of the entire presentation. This is my information. As you'll see, my email is down there, my phone number. I will have this presentation available to folks. I will let you know that I have included in my presentation this kind of slide deck that's going to be made available. We have a water and environmental programs matrix. It includes links. It includes more information on different programs. So I am including that in my slide deck so that when it is uploaded, folks have the ability to go in and take a look at that, as well as the slides that I've laid out here. I know there are going to be questions. If there aren't already in the chat, there will be. If you don't want to ask them in this format, like I said, please don't hesitate to reach out. If you are located in a state, I can certainly, and I will certainly connect you with that state rural development office that can provide you assistance. If you are FEMA or other rural development staff, again, don't hesitate to reach out to myself or others, and we can certainly walk through any questions. I really hope this is the beginning of a conversation around how our funds can be matched together and work together. so that in the long run and down the road, we continue to serve the communities in rural America as we have done so far.
Now we have some closing information for you. To report corruption, waste, fraud, abuse, mismanagement, and/or misconduct, contact the Department of Homeland Security, Office of Inspector General by phone at 1-800-323-8603 or via the mailing address listed on the screen now. Procurement requirements are among the most complicated parts of the PA grant process, and noncompliance can result in de-obligation of funding. Please make sure that you are following FEMA's procurement guidance for recipients and subrecipients. Federal requirements for procurement and contracting are described in 2 CFR Part 200. The Procurement Disaster Assistance Team, or PDAT, offers some training and tools on their website at www.fema.gov/grants/procurement. For technical assistance with Grants Portal or Grants Manager, you can call the PA Grants Portal Grants Manager hotline at 866-337-8448. National hours of operation are 8 a.m. through 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. The hotline can also be reached by email at FEMA-recovery-PA-grants@fema.dhs.gov. We have many other recorded webinars and tutorial videos available on our YouTube channel. You can find them by searching for FEMA Grants Portal on YouTube or by navigating to the Support Center in Grants Portal or Grants Manager. Thank you for watching.